an ominous prophecy forces the demon queen, Elizabeth, to go find the foretold legendary hero so that she can defeat him once and for all when he doesn't appear after 15 years. Upon facing the hero, the Ping, she unexpectedly gets to eat his food and discovers how delicious it is. She decides to stay with him so that she can get stronger and defeat him by eating his delicious food. Get ready for a journey of hilariously wild antics from this unlikely duo. This is a world of heroes wielding swords and magi. The hero's continent. At this very moment, this place currently has a large-scale massive war taking place due to the Demon Queen launching an all-out war against the races. With the help of the Demon Queen's oppressive strength, the Demon Queen's army was like a hot knife through butter in their attacks, and the empires of the various races fell to ruin one after another. Very quickly, only the human race remained steadfast in their resistance, but unfortunately, because of the internal strife and rebellions amongst the humans, their empire collapsed along with their defenses and the humans were ordered to surrender. Just like that, she was dubbed the strongest demon queen in history. Elizabeth as well as secured her position as the only ruler in the world. In the human empire, a teacher, Barrow, tells Elizabeth to not think she's won with this alone because she will definitely be defeated by their hero in the future, just like in the legends. The human prince, wise Malfoy, kicks Barrow in the face and menacingly tells him to get things straight because right now, Her Majesty isn't asking for his opinion. She's giving him an order. Barrow furiously calls him a patricide committing, enemy-welcoming traitor of the human race and says he even cultivated him as if he was the prophesied hero in vain. Wise transforms his hand into a terrifying monster and declares that he will let Barrow join his father since he misses him so much. Elizabeth abruptly tells Wise to stay his hand, and he stops just an inch from Barrow's eye. She remarks that he said he will stand by the human side in the future, and it will end in the Queen's defeat. She commands him to explain what he means and declares that she has 1,000 different ways to make him suffer a fate worse than death. Barrow desperately announces that the prophecy states that when the foretold hero pulls out the holy sword, it will be the day the demon race's reign comes to an end. The holy sword is the sword embedded in the stone platform of the main hall, but he will never tell anyone else because he will never betray the human race. Elizabeth looks down at the holy sword Alpha and questions if the legends tell of the hero receiving the right to challenge her because he pulls out the sword. She turns away and walks back to her throne, remarking that she looks forward to him arriving here. As the years went by under Elizabeth's reign, the security at the castle gates, ready to face any danger, slowly thinned out and was finally removed in the 15th year. Under the Demon Queen's absolute rule, all the past practices and the inequalities amongst the races were completely abolished, and everyone was able to get along on equal standing. Without disputes, everyone was able to live in peace and harmony and develop together. Very quickly, the heroes' continent began thriving and flourishing. Additionally, because they were afraid of the rare peace being destroyed, an anti-hero alliance emerged and resolutely rejected the arrival of the prophesied hero. In the Demon Empire, Elizabeth asks her subjects if they have any news of the prophesied hero's arrival. He, Chancellor of the Elf race, Twillier, reports that the Elf race has already mobilized all the tree insects to search, but they could not find a single piece of information regarding the prophesied hero. The Chancellor of the Dwarf race, Heimerdinger, explains that the dwarves are not very good at collecting information, but according to what they've compiled from every weapon store around, there has been nobody suspicious. He, Chancellor of the human race, Aristotle, believes that even if the prophesied hero does not make his appearance, him standing up against them will be in vain, so they don't need to worry about him at all. The Chancellor of the demon race, Jim, tells Aristotle that he may not know since he just joined, but Her Majesty isn't afraid of the prophesied hero. Instead, she really wishes for him to come, in order to act in response to that prophecy. Her Majesty gathered all sorts of ancient books on magic and war tactics to research. Chancellor of the Beastman continent. Mogul believes she could annihilate the hero's continent in a split second if she wills it. Twillier remarks that it's the idiot Barrow's fault and is just a load of nonsense, which is why it's good for them that Her Majesty is ruling, which is why they can just let the prophesied hero die. Barrow, initially High Priest of the human race and now President of the Demon Queen's fan club and of the Anti-Prophesied Hero Association, arrives and calls for the rejection of the hero and for everyone to support the reign of the Demon Queen. Talk about a career downgrade. Elizabeth suddenly grabs Baron with her magic and furiously asks him to explain where the prophesied hero is. Scared out of his wits, Barrow shakily says the prophecy actually doesn't have to be completely accurate when the target exceeds the expectations of the prophecy. Wise gets down on his knees and says that's right. It's a great offense to take that stupid prophecy and apply it to Her Majesty. It is too great an offense, and Her Majesty doesn't need to take offense in the slightest because the official has had new findings recently. Suddenly, Elizabeth slaps him with her tail and tells him to get lost. Elizabeth furiously flings Barrow into the wall and declares that being the queen, she has reached the peak of the world and holds the power of the world. She waits for the legendary hero to challenge her so that she can make him a stepping stone for even more fame. She has studied all the ancient magic books of the hero continent and has created the doomsday magic to wait for the challenge after countless hardships, but he is still nowhere to be seen. She looks down at the sword and grabs it, remarking that since he isn't coming to her, the chancellors alarmingly try to stop her, but she declares that she will get to him. She unleashes all her power and starts pulling the sword out as Twillia unbelievably questions if she's really going to pull out the holy sword. A gigantic blast erupts, destroying the ceiling as Elizabeth finally manages to pull the holy sword out and asks who said only the legendary hero can pull it out. She suddenly senses something far away and finds out where the legendary hero is hiding. She uses her spell force teleportation, seeing which Wise tries to hurry to her side, desperately asking her to have him serve by her side, but she instantly disappears, leaving only a single strand of hair. In the newbie village, the legendary hero peacefully farms and explains that his name is Leping. In reality, he was just an ordinary office worker who lived a dull life and wasn't fond of playing video games or watching anime, and his only pleasure was probably watching his favorite short videos on his way to work. On his way to work one day, he learns the correct way of fertilizing through shorts and other different methods, admitting he's envious and wishing he could live like this too. Suddenly, he gets transported to a different world from his bus, and presently explains that under the guidance of the newbie system, he slowly learned the basic survival skills required for living in this world and didn't know anything about this world, but it didn't matter because this was the kind of pastoral life he always wished for, and he felt like his body was much healthier than when we has working. He receives a notification from the system, stating that after this period of newbie training, he has fully met the conditions required to leave the newbie village and can start his adventure now. Leping nervously questions if he really has to leave, so the system states that after leaving the village, he will meet all kinds of other people in this world and can learn various skills of sword and magic from them, allowing him to become the legendary hero and kill the Demon King. Unconvinced, Leping says he doesn't want to kill any Demon King and asks if he can't just continue living here. The system hurriedly informs him that he can't and says killing the Demon King is the player's main mission. It warns him that the later he leaves the village, the higher the difficulty will be when he faces the Demon King, and tries to entice him by saying he can get treasures and all kinds of encounters by learning skills of sword and magic as a legendary hero. It keeps urging him to begin his mission and leave the village, but Leping notices that besides continuously nagging him, It doesn't look like the system can actually do something to harm him, so he just wants to live like this forever because there is a special time barrier here that can completely hide the newbie village for safety, and inside the barrier, a day has far more than 24 hours of time perception, which also enables him to do the things he enjoys, like farming, hunting, forging, and meditation. Leping admits he still doesn't know anything about swords and magic, but since he doesn't want to go out on a special adventure, it doesn't really matter. Through exchanging points from newbie tasks, he slowly built his ideal pastoral home from scratch until, one day, enraged, the system furiously questions how he just wants to farm in a world of swords and magic and is just completely ignoring his suggestions. It asks how Leping is a legendary hero at all when he only knows how he can play with newbie points and can exchange them for maintenance tools, since he doesn't want to experiment and learn more about swords and magic. The system's various adventure assistance's skills are of no use here, which it hates and hopes Leping dies soon because of the Demon King. One day, the system suddenly crashes and disappears. Leping goes to prepare some firewood first since it seems to be running low and he's hungry. He remembers that he forgot to bring back his axe Da Zhuang from the woods when he went out to chop wood in the morning. The weather suddenly changes, surprising Leping before Elizabeth appears before him and addresses him as the legendary hero, declaring that they finally meet. Unfortunately, Leping isn't paying her any heed and rushes to get his clothes and dried fish, thinking it's going to unexpectedly rain as she speechlessly watches him. Leping thankfully manages to make it in time to protect his dried fish and sausages since they would have gone bad otherwise before the electronic pet dog he was sent for companionship. Wankai hurriedly barks for his attention. Clearly, even robot dogs know the power of dramatic timing. Leping tells him to cut it out and to hurry back inside since it's about to rain, but he suddenly looks up and notices something floating in the sky, asking Wankai what it is. Elizabeth sees that he's quite dull and asks how he dared to address her as something, so he hurriedly clarifies that he didn't see her clearly, but she says she should verify first and shoots a bet at him. Alarmed, he drops his fish and sausages and asks what she's talking about before quickly shielding himself from the beam. He reflexively grabs the holy sword Elizabeth threw towards him and is surprised to see it. He asks what's going on as Elizabeth remarks that the recognition of the holy sword Alpha can't be wrong, but its magic sensing ability is so low that even ordinary soldiers might be able to surpass it. She wonders if he's hiding his true power. She declares that she's Elizabeth, the strongest demon queen in history, and today, she shall completely obliterate him. She begins casting her magic as Leping depressingly questions why the demon queen is here when he hasn't even left the village. Wankai angrily growls at Elizabeth, but Leping tries to get him to shut up as Elizabeth uses abyss magic, extinction. Leping realizes that, as the system said, the meeting between the legendary hero and the Demon King is inevitable, even if never leaves this village, and declares that there's nothing more to say. He shakily starts running away from the attack and remarks that he's been a complete newbie so far, but the Demon King suddenly comes knocking at his door, so there's nothing he can do instead of accepting his fate. At the door to his house, he realizes he should be content and admits he has no regrets, knowing he could spend such times here. He's going to return to Zero along with his home. He shuts the door as Elizabeth furiously questions what he did just now, thinking he told her to come at him with all she's got. She angrily says he's unbelievable and fires her magic at his house, but Wankai unexpectedly finishes a calculation and deploys several missiles and projectiles that collide with the magic before it can reach Leping's house. As Wankai barks at Elizabeth, she believes the hero from the legend dares to be so arrogant by completely relying on having an awakened magical tool with awakened sentience, but in front of her, everything is inferior. She casts her apocalyptic magic and remarks that she has lost all interest in probing further, so she's going to end things here. She fires Earth recasting, but Wankai completes another round of calculations and fires a small blast at her. However, Elizabeth declares that it's useless as the magic misses her and tells him to disappear obediently along with this land. Unexpectedly, the spell Wankai fired turns out to be a quantum mechanical black hole that completely swallows her apocalyptic magic and disappears. Shocked, Elizabeth disbelievingly questions if her apocalyptic magic was just cracked, questioning what Leping did inside the house. Meanwhile, Leping contentedly lies on his bed while waiting for death and stonily tells her to come at him because he's prepared. Elizabeth slowly lands in front of Wankai, who keeps barking. She slowly starts laughing and realizes that she is unexpectedly the one who underestimated the hero. She slowly extends her demonic hands and grows out her wings, angrily telling Leping to not get so conceited because so far, she has only been using less than 30% of her power. She angrily declares that she is going to show him what real terror is and transforms into her demon god form before rushing towards Wankai. An hour later, Leping falls asleep and wonders if he's died. He slowly wakes up and yawns, shockingly realizing he's still home. He gets up and notices it seems quite outside, but shakily wonders if the Demon Queen would be waiting for him outside like a complete maniac. He slowly opens the door to see heavy smoke covering the area. Elizabeth emerges out of the smoke, furiously holding a completely broken down Wankai. Leping urgently calls for him, so she throws it away and turns towards him, furiously apologizing for completely destroying the magical tool he was so proud of. Frightened, Leping shakily assures her that it's okay and asks if they can sit down and talk. Elizabeth remarks that they can talk after she kills him, but suddenly starts shaking. Surprised, she says this is unbelievable and wonders if this is the ending foretold for her since she has been fully pushed to her limits. She suddenly falls down, so Leping quickly hurries to her side and asks if she's okay. Her demonic armor suddenly starts dissipating, seeing which Leping wonders what's happening before her clothes fade away as well, shocking Leping. It should have been me, not him. Of course, the Giga Chad gets to see a 10/10 view. Later, Elizabeth is lying on Leping's bed with her hands cuffed behind her and suddenly wakes up. Furious, she admits the Demon Queen, suffered a humiliating defeat and realizes that instead of killing her when he got the chance, Leping imprisoned him. She wonders if he did that to show his power to the world and starts using her magic, but the handcuffs stop her from doing so. She sees that this is another legendary class artifact she wasn't aware of and questions just how much power he's still hiding and looks around the room. She remarks that these strange things are definitely not as simple as they look, and hero is much more wicked than she imagined, realizing she underestimated him. Leping is surprised to see that she's awake, but she tells him to not expect her to beg if he intends to kill her. He inwardly admits the Demon King is truly frightening, but this is the only chance to survive, so he must seize it. He nervously asks if they can talk instead and clarifies that he just used the handcuffs as a precaution because of how terrifying she is. He hurriedly catches himself and says he did it because of how formidable she is, hearing which she confusingly looks at him. Leping says he thinks there must have been a misunderstanding and that he'll unlock the handcuffs for now so that they can talk. From Elizabeth's perspective, she believes Leping is declaring that she has had a misunderstanding from the start and asked if she thought she was formidable enough to challenge the hero. He says she's absolutely wrong and orders her to fulfill his demands if she wishes to stay alive. Alarmed, she inwardly questions if he's trying to threaten the Demon Queen before Leping unlocks her handcuffs. He says he's unlocked the handcuffs just like he said, so this should prove he doesn't have any ill intentions, and says they should talk now as promised. Elizabeth flexes her wrists and admits the current situation is very unfavorable for her. Strong individuals know when to bend and stretch, so she should endure for now, but he will regret his arrogance later. Leping remarks that he's sure everyone is curious about why he didn't kill the Demon Queen when she was unconscious, so he explains that in this world full of swords and magic, it's perfectly normal for her as the Demon Queen to possess a resurrection skill. Killing chickens and fish for soup is one thing, but he could never kill a person, let alone someone as important as the Demon Queen. However, resolving the conflict between the legendary hero and the Demon King doesn't necessarily require killing and fighting, which is why as long as he can show that he poses no threat to her and becomes her friend, he can continue to live happily. He starts slowly chuckling because of how brilliant his plan is, but Elizabeth interprets it as him mocking her. Leping examines Wang Kai's immobile, completely destroyed form and remarks that he's become a total mess. Elizabeth asks if Leping's most powerful magic tool, hearing which he inwardly says it's no magic tool, it's just a little thing he made while living out here out of boredom. He remarks that you could say Wang Kai was developed by him recently, hearing which Elizabeth maliciously smiles and inwardly says it's time because it's his turn to be careless. Since the handcuffs binding her have been untied, she can secretly use abyss magic, infinite magic, to recover quickly, and since Leping has lost his most important magic tool, it's akin to him losing his right arm, which means the balance of power has tilted towards her. She gets up and apologizes for breaking his things, but he assures her that it's fine since the memory card is still here. She says it is the best time for her to eliminate him. The legendary hero, as Leping turns around and says the body can be repaired before unveiling a drawer full of Wang Kai bodies, explaining that he'd already made preparations for this kind of situation so she doesn't need to worry. As Elizabeth watches in shock, Leping plucks the memory card into another Wang Kai and it instantly activates. He explains that it's fun to have a companion, but it's naughty sometimes, so he unusually only activates one at home. Elizabeth interprets this as Leping manically laughing along with his evil magical tool and sits back down in disbelief. She suddenly smells an aroma and asks where it's coming from. Leping explains that he made some food to warm her up since she fainted out of exhaustion. He presents her with dumplings and a meat porridge, seeing which Elizabeth slowly gulps and her stomach starts groaning. Leping cheerily says these are all made from the vegetables and grains he grew himself, completely natural, and asks her to have a taste, believing solving conflicts with delicious food will definitely work. She slowly picks up a dumpling and takes a bite, but Leping can't able to tell if her expressions changed and nervously wonders if the Demon Queen with her high status will appreciate these newbie village things, even though he's quite confident in his cooking. However, Elizabeth quickly finishes the plate of dumplings and tears up because of how delicious it is, remarking that with each bite, the meat juices burst like fireworks in her mouth with a natural and unadorned flavor, as well as containing a high concentration of magical energy. She's surprised by the fact that this world actually has such a delicious delicacy and admits that even she, the Demon Queen, can't bear to swallow the last bite. When she swallows it, she suddenly groans in satisfaction before a volcano erupts inside her. She hurriedly asks Leping what he put inside the dumplings since they're so spicy. Scared out of his wits, he explains he added a lit bit chili according to his own taste and asks if she doesn't like spicy food. She breathlessly realizes she was right all along because there were no good intentions. The evil hero has imprisoned her just to use her as a subject for his research experiments. Leping suddenly realizes something and asks her to have the century egg and lean pork congee he made for her since it reduces heat and fire. As she's still overcome by the spiciness, Elizabeth remarks that he's feeding poison on one hand and providing an antidote on the other. Realizing that he just intends to play with her in the palm of his hand, But there's unfortunately no way around it because this strange feeling is too uncomfortable. She slowly takes a bit of the meat porridge and immediately transcends to heaven, relishing how peaceful and comfortable this feeling is. The quest for world domination. The struggle between the demon king and the hero. All of these disturbances no longer concern her. She wants to let go of everything and live freely, but it's because of these that she's discovered how truly insignificant she is. Her power advances, and she becomes a 3-star demon queen, surprised to see that after consuming food, she was brought into a new realm and under the presence of 2 extreme stimuli. Her power has once again advanced. She tells Leping to not pretend and asks what he wants hearing, which he nervously asks what she's thinking, and reveals that he just wants them to research how a demon queen and a hero can coexist. Elizabeth remarks that he has finally revealed his true intentions and interprets what he said as him declaring that in this world, she's the only one qualified to be the subject of his research as the hero, and telling her to join his side so that he can help her become stronger and defeat him. In reality, Leping worriedly asks if that's fine and offers to continue making food for her. Enraged, she inwardly declares that a knight may be killed but not shamed, and that she is the demon queen. She sees him maliciously telling her that if he wants to become stronger, he can help her, and is also looking forward to see whether or not she's qualified enough to beat him. She tells him to forget and stands on the bed. She points at him and tells him to listen to her, admitting that she can agree with Hi's conditions, but he should know that she's doing this not out of fear, but to pursue the pinnacle of strength. Frightened, Leping wonders what she would fear him for when she's the demon queen who holds the power and can do as she wishes. Furthermore, she also tells him to not think that she'll lower her head and be submissive while living here, because her dignity as the demon queen must never be violated. Otherwise, even if she has to sacrifice everything, she will destroy him. He shakily agrees and says they should get along now. She tells him to feel free to come over if he wants to do any research, and says if there's anything delicious, she wants it all. A year later, Leping uses the Holy Sword Alpha to chop some wood and wonders what he should do since things have gotten complicated. He explains that ever since the Demon Queen forcibly entered and broke the protective barrier of the newbie village, which is why time here has gradually synchronized with the outside world. The synchronization isn't the issue, but what's disastrous is that without the barrier's protection, the newbie village has lost its concealment function and is completely exposed in the wilderness, and the monsters appearing nearby don't seem to be so simple. However, because of the Demon Queen's presence here, they don't dare to approach, which might mean that once the Demon Queen leaves, he'll be completely exposed. My man's just trying not to get obliterated. Elizabeth suddenly calls for him and asks why lunch isn't ready yet, so he hurriedly says he's coming right away. Leping heads inside to see a chubby-looking Elizabeth watching the television and saying she's tired of watching these recordings of his. She asks if he can get something new from that system of his, so he says the system has long since disappeared and that lunch is ready. She says she'll be there in a moment and summons wings to fly to the lunch. She asks what kind of poison he's feeding her in these chips, since she feels like the more she eats, the lazier she becomes, inwardly remarking that he's using the guise of delicious food to paralyze her with these slow-acting poisons so that he can lead her to total depravity. He explains these chips are high in calories, so eating too many of these can easily accumulate in fat, which naturally leads to people getting fat. Elizabeth examines how much her weight has grown and uses deep sea magic, negative attribute conversion, to instantly revert her to the state she was in a year ago. She explains all the fat accumulated in her body has been converted into magical power, shocking Leping. She remarks that another trick of his has been oiled now and asks if he feels disappointed, so he nervously states that whatever she says is right and that they should eat. She remarks that today's lunch perfectly suits her taste and warns him that she won't hold back before instantly starting to gobble the food up. He offhandedly says he can make more if this isn't enough, shocking her since she interprets it as him telling her to fatten herself up before he can kill her. He goes to make dessert for here as Elizabeth furiously questions if he's still treating her like a pig when she has broken through 10 times in the past year and should definitely have the ability to kill him now. He brings out her favorite pudding and her anger instantly disappears, seeing which Leping says she isn't difficult to deal with since the right food easily calms her down. Meanwhile, a pair of adventurers are desperately running from phantoms that use spatial tearing, nail cage to trap them. The man tells his daughter, Evil, to wait for him while he holds them back and to keep going towards the next town since she will be safe there. Evil tearfully says she can't leave him and escape alone, so he hurriedly reminds her that he promised her mother he would protect her no matter what. A phantom summons a large ball of ghost fire to fire at them, so the man quickly says he has to finish this quickly and decides to use the strongest move. He rushes into the air and slices the phantom into two, but another one slowly absorbs its remnants and turns into a mutated version. Evil declares that she won't leave him behind no matter what and shoots out her natural arrows at the mutated phantom, but it effortlessly absorbs them. Her father says she can't handle the Dark Guild's apostles and tells her to hurry and leave because even he doesn't know how long he can hold them here. Meanwhile, the apostle rushes forward and closes the distance between him and the man. The man quickly raises his sword to block the blow, but the apostle punches him away. Shocked, the man spits out blood and weakly tells Evil to go quickly and not worry about him. Suddenly, the apostle lands in front of them and merges with two more apostles, transforming into a giant mutated apostle that looks down on them. Evil hurriedly asks for her father to be spared and agrees to go with them, but the apostle roars and she realizes she's about to die. The apostle gets ready to smash them into oblivion, but a gigantic Lord Mammoth suddenly appears and crushes it to a pulp beneath its feet. Bewildered, Evil notices a temple above the mammoth, and an immortal frog slowly appears in the temple and informs his big brother that the danger has been cleared, asking what they should do with these two harmless humans. Standing on its head, Wankai tells him to not harm these humans because he will take them back so that the master can deal with them. In a house, Evil suddenly wakes up, accepting to see the monster, but realizes she's in a normal house. She remembers her father and hurries out to help him get treated, but finds him flexing his muscle outside. Leping praises his strength before Elizabeth kicks Wankai away and angrily asks why he brought these riffraff back. While Leping continues admiring the man's muscles, Elizabeth notices that Evil has woken up and tells her to get going because she was the first one here. Leping says they should go inside and talk since it's rare for them to have guests. The man and his daughter believe the water Leping gives them is special magic water, and the man tells his daughter that he wouldn't have been here to talk to her if not for that water. Stunned, Evil asks if they can really drink something so miraculous, but Leping says they're being too kind and assures them that it's fine. Upon taking a sip, they instantly feel at peace and break through one level. Leping offers them some more, but the man says that's enough, believing he's basically a god, as Leping inwardly remarks that he would offer them some snacks, but Elizabeth has taken them away and might get annoyed. Man, she's playing the role of a tough bitch well. Evil asks him what the name of the game was. This really stumps Ling because he isn't sure if they would understand what a landlord is. So instead, he names it Dragon Fight. This surprises both the father and daughter. However, even Elizabeth, who is watching nearby with some high-level concealment magic, is shocked. Lang explains that the two heroes must work together to defeat the dragon, and they decide who is the hero and who is the dragon based on the cards they draw. Sure enough, they thought this game was a test for them on whether they should live or not in their vision. Lang looks very evil, but he warns them to think carefully about their card choices. Lang draws his cards first, and he tells the others to hurry up as well. Evil draws her cards first, but as soon as she touches them, their surroundings suddenly change. Evil's father, who is now Best, was shocked when they found out they had been transported to another realm after picking all of her cards. Evil nearly collapsed, as drawing her cards almost drained all of her magical power. Soon enough, they all had their cards. Ling asked them if either one wanted to be the dragon. They both said no. Looking at his cards, Ling realized that if he got another 4 and an ace, he would have a winning hand. He asked them again if they wanted to be the dragon before drawing his cards. When the cards were revealed, Ling frowned because none of them were a 4 or an ace. However, both Evil and Best misunderstood his frown, thinking he was unhappy with their performance. Ling then played an 8 before passing the turn to Bess. As soon as he tried to play a card, a surge of magic flowed out of him and into the card. Playing a card actually cost him some of his life force. Without wasting any time, Best then played a jack. Evil glances at her father, worried, but Best reassures his daughter that he's okay. Then, both Evil and Liping pass. Since it's Bess's turn once again, he puts down a combination known as Flying Dragon. All of a sudden, more magic is sucked out of Bess's body because the cards he plays create the illusion of the Flying Dragon attacking Ling. Both look shocked. However, when the dust settles, Ling can be seen completely fine. Both Evil and Ling then pass, which gives the turn back to Bess. He plays a 3, which Evil passes. Ling then plays a 10 and they both pass. That was the start of their unfortunate end. Ling suddenly plays a straight, shocking the father-daughter pair. This time, it summons a huge wave that nearly washes them both away. Then, Ling plays a trio in a pair, summoning 2 gladiators on a chariot to charge at them. Bess grits his teeth. He has nothing to beat them. However, Evil steps up to challenge Ling's cards. Bess tells her not to play, as it uses her life force as the price. But Ale refuses. She can't just hide behind her father forever. She then plays another 3 of a kind with a pair that is larger than Liping's cards. As the dust settles, only Evil's chariot stands unscathed. Bess checks on Evil, asking if she is alright, to which she replies that she is fine. However, Ling is not yet finished. Both the father and daughter, along with Elizabeth, are quietly spectating from the corners. Suddenly, an ominous feeling washes over him. With his treasure lying nearby, he summons a pair of jokers and plays them. In an instant, a large crack appears in the realm they occupy. From this fissure emerges a level 3 demon, the Clown King, whose presence even shocks Elizabeth with its overwhelming power. As its eyes wander, it unexpectedly locks onto Elizabeth, despite her attempts to conceal herself with magic. The demon, in a chilling display, asks her what she was staring at before conjuring a knife and threatening her. Elizabeth grits her teeth at this blatant provocation, but she finds herself powerless to respond. The Clown King is, in fact, equal in strength to her. This is particularly alarming because he has been nourished by Lang for an entire year. Lang, unfazed, casually summons something equally as powerful as herself, leaving Bess and Eagle to watch in despair. Despite their best efforts, they realize they are utterly powerless. Suddenly, Bess begins to cough blood, coming to a grim realization. The essence of life seems to be draining away at an alarming rate. Concerned, Lang inquires about his well-being, believing that his injury has yet to heal. However, he sneaks a glance at his cards, revealing that Bess holds a winning hand. Lang misinterprets this as Uncle Best permitting him to play alongside him in his naivete. He genuinely thought he was skilled, when in truth, Best merely allowed him to participate and Lang is, in fact, interrupting his rest. Subsequently, he reshuffles the deck, cancels the summon for the Clown King and reorganizes it within his pile. Apologizing for disturbing their peace, he sulks back to his room. Meanwhile, the father and daughter remain shaken and perplexed, yet relieved to be alive. Elizabeth, once again, misreads his intentions. In truth, this card game served as a display of his dominance over her. The following day, the four individuals stand outside Lai Ping's house as he bids them farewell. Lai Ping asks whether they truly do not wish to stay for a few more days, as the fruits he planted are nearly ripe. In response, Bess bows, expressing that he cannot impose on them any longer and that Lang expresses his gratitude for their kindness. However, he also reassures them that once they leave, they will not disclose what they have just witnessed. Evil, too, thanks them for providing some barley tea. Lang, feeling a bit embarrassed, simply scratches his head and states that it is all right. Subsequently, he approaches B and presents him with a memento, his playing cards. After engaging in a game with him, Ling realizes just how poorly he performs in card games, leading him to conclude that the cards should remain with B. As Ling wallows in despair, Elizabeth catches Bess's attention. She then mouths the words, "Hurry up and get out of here," prompting the two to flee for their lives without so much as a farewell. This abrupt departure confuses Lai Ping. What could he have possibly done to provoke such a reaction? Elizabeth, turning back, commands him to prepare food for the queen, to which Lang begrudgingly acquiesces. Meanwhile, Bess continues to flee with his daughter, eventually leading her to plead for them to stop. He comes to a halt Bess's eyes first. It was a test of the legendary hero, but then it transformed into a confrontation with the Demon Queen. He recalls just last night when the Demon Queen approached them, slashing across their necks. Surprisingly, however, this did not completely eradicate them. Instead, they found themselves adorned with new magical collars inscribed with runes. The Demon Queen then commanded them to depart the following day, all the while concealing the presence of the Demon Lord and the legendary hero in Newbie Village from the outside world. If not, the curse marks encircling their necks would result in their immediate decapitation. The two had no choice but to acquiesce to the Demon Queen's request. Once the flashback ended, they faced an uncertain future. As they both gaze upward, it becomes clear that they have returned to the very spot where their journey initially commenced. Surprisingly, even the lifeless corpses of the deceased apostles remain, a chilling reminder of their past encounters. Best is astonished. He never imagined he could run such a distance at that speed. In reality, however, Wan Kai provided them with a crucial boost, preventing them from disturbing Li Ping and Elizabeth any further. Carefully scanning his surroundings, Best remains cognizant of the numerous high-level demons likely lurking nearby. Thus, they must depart swiftly. Suddenly, Wan Kai's ears perk up, sensing something rapidly approaching their location. Despite this awareness, he chooses to disregard it this time. After all, if he wishes to avoid a confrontation with Elizabeth, it is prudent to keep his mechanical nose out of others' affairs. Consequently, he teleports himself back home. Just as he does, several cloaked figures appear before Best and Evil. Among them stands an individual devoid of a cloak, who seems to command the group. Best's heart races in horror as he recognizes the Dark Apostle, the leader of the Dark Guild, standing before them. The Apostle, recognizing the significant disparity in their levels, implores her father to permit her to leave with them while he retreats. However, Bess has grown weary of fleeing. When comparing the prowess of the legendary hero to that of the Demon Queen, it becomes evident that these Dark Guild apostles are insignificant. Taking out the deck of cards that Lang had given him, he directs them toward the apostles, which promptly obliterates some of the weaker members in the group. This unexpected display of power surprises the great apostle. He had not anticipated such strength emanating from someone who appears so frail. Bess acknowledges that ever since her mother was taken back to the elf tribe, he has become increasingly timid and has started to evade their problems. However, he now understands that such behavior was misguided. If they can endure this challenging moment, Bess vows to her daughter that he will escort her to the elf tribe and retrieve her mother. Drawing a 4 of a kind from the deck, Bess summons a formidable 4-bomb arrow god, resembling Evil's mother, to aid them. The arrow god conjures a bow and arrow from magic, launching a mystical projectile aimed at all the Dark Apostles before them. They can react. 3 apostles in the arrow's path instantly perish, leaving only the great apostle remaining. Initially, this great apostle sneers and confidently reaches for the arrow. However, the great apostle's hubris ultimately leads to its downfall, as the arrow, even when confronted with both hands, is able to easily pierce through and inflict harm. Once all the apostles have been vanquished, the image of the arrow god dissipates and the cards return to the deck. Bess nearly collapses from exhaustion afterward, as Ale rushes to her father's side, observing the effects of the summoned cards on the environment. Bess decides at that moment to change his profession. It is in that instant that a new profession, the card master, was born. A week later, as Lang had mentioned previously, the fruits in his garden begin to ripen. He can be seen savoring some water in his delightful garden. He notes that his fruit breeding method has proven to be quite successful. However, without anyone to share this joy of the harvest, it always feels as if something is missing. Lang then reflects on all the marvelous opportunities he has witnessed thus far in this enchanting world and realizes that he is somewhat intrigued by what the outside world has to offer. The only problem is that he feels too weak to pursue it. This thought leads him to believe he should simply forget about it altogether. Suddenly, a cloud of dust materializes as Elizabeth teleports next to him. Noticing his forlorn expression, she inquires about what is troubling him. Lang responds that he yearns to explore the outside world, but he feels too feeble to do so. Hearing this, Elizabeth decides to extend an invitation for him to join her on a trip outside. Excitedly, Lang asks if it is indeed true. It would be an entirely different narrative if he had the necessary protection. In the aftermath of the Demon Queen's influence, Elizabeth, having finished her drink, instructs Lang to change his attire promptly. Soon, both are clad in stylish, newly tailored garments crafted by Lang himself. Elizabeth offers a rare compliment, noting that his culinary and sewing skills are quite impressive indeed. They stand out. Lang responds with a hint of pride, asserting that these are, of course, his specialties. Now that they are both dressed elegantly, they prepare to venture into the outside world. With a snap of her fingers, Elizabeth conjures a transfer door, ready to teleport to the nearest town. Lang marvels at the convenience of such an ability. However, before she steps through the portal, he halts her, laying down some ground rules. First, she must not leave him alone. Second, she should maintain emotional stability. And third, she is to behave more subtly among the townsfolk. Elizabeth perceives Lang's demeanor as somewhat demanding and arrogant. This frustrates her, yet she recognizes the necessity of his requests and ultimately agrees. Finally, Lang inquires if she will return with him after witnessing the transformations of the outside world, particularly given the constraints imposed by the time barrier. Although his tone may be assertive, the underlying concern is evident. If he is left alone, he will inevitably become sustenance for the demonic beasts, especially in the absence of the Demon Queen. Elizabeth, however, concurs, albeit for an entirely different reason. Before she can ultimately defeat him, the external world holds little significance for her. This is evident. Nevertheless, the request is not without its stipulation. Upon their return, he must prepare for her a super deluxe assorted fruit pudding. He readily agrees and, with a sense of joy, follows her through the transfer door. Meanwhile, Huan Cad is tasked with guarding the house. Once they step through the transfer door, he is met with the enchanting sight of Fantasy Town, a place that captures the imagination. The town is known as Boer Town, a neutral space where individuals of various races coexist and thrive together. Lai Ping's eyes glisten as he surveys this unfamiliar and intriguing world. He gestures to an equipment shop and a food stall, directing Elizabeth's attention before he begins to wander aimlessly, captivated by the remarkable and exotic sights. In contrast, Elizabeth appears less enthusiastic. She seems more astonished that the transformations in the external world do not appear as monumental as she anticipated. Lai Ping concurs, remarking that it is not as chaotic as Uncle Bess had portrayed. Elizabeth, filled with pride, articulates that the current stability is a result of her efforts. Prior to her reign, numerous factions were embroiled in conflict, leading to a tumultuous state of affairs. Through her absolute power, she quelled those factions and established a framework of rules that ensured their equality. Thus, the one credited with saving the hero's continent was not the fabled hero, but rather the demon queen. However, her self-aggrandizing narrative seems to go unheard, as Lai Ping has vanished from his initial spot. Instead, he can be observed admiring a stall run by a young girl selling teddy bears. It is as if Lun does not even acknowledge her achievement. However, Lun takes a closer look at the dolls and praises their stitching. He then inquires of the little girl whether she was the one who crafted the doll. In response, the girl affirms her role and offers to sell it to Lang at a reduced price. But before they can complete their transaction, a gruff and demanding voice interrupts, questioning the girl about who granted her permission to set up a stall in that area. This voice belonged to a pig-headed man who, in a fit of anger, kicks the tiny stall the girl constructed, sending her dolls tumbling. The man then seizes the girl, berating her for the fact that her church has not paid any protection money. The little kids accompanying her tremble in fear as they witness their big sister being interrogated for funds. Defiantly, the girl retorts that they have never truly been protected. Thus, she should not be compelled to pay any protection fees. The pig-headed man merely snorts, informing her that since last month, this territory has fallen under the control of the Beast Gang. If she desires to, in order to survive in this environment, she must pay protection money to them each month. Still, the little girl remains defiant, asserting that his claims are false because the church belongs to the nun. She insists that when the nun returns, they will all regret their actions. However, the obstinate man merely shrugs off her threat, retorting that he will expel the orphans today and demolish the old church. Witnessing this injustice, Ling gathers his courage and implores him to stop. Yet, as soon as the orc's attention shifts to him, his confidence dissipates. He attempts to signal for help from Elizabeth, but she blatantly ignores him. Lacking his primary source of power, Ling feels powerless as the thick-headed man demands that he declare his intentions. Looking around at the large crowd that has gathered, he suddenly has a notion. With a booming voice, he declares that a pig-headed man is bullying a little girl and that they should condemn him. Unfortunately, for our protagonist, the surrounding crowd seems indifferent to his plea. This only serves to amuse the thick-headed man. Everyone knows their gang is notorious here, and it is clear that no one would dare to intervene. He helps him with his eyes, then turns to Elizabeth, licking his lips. He assesses their attire and concludes rather hastily that they are all foreigners from the south. Given that the circumstances are not in his favor, Lang attempts to reason with the gang by offering some local specialties from his bag, which he is willing to share. However, the pig-headed man disregards his offer. Instead, he commands his gang members to beat him up and take the woman back to their hideout, thereby locking her away. This infuriates Elizabeth, who believes that no one is qualified to imprison her, especially since she is a self-proclaimed prisoner of Lang. Her anger instantly darkens the skies as red lightning begins to crackle, forming the visage of a malevolent face. The unnatural spectacle causes the pig-faced man to tremble in fear, prompting him to drop the little girl. Realizing that her wrath could potentially devastate the town, Lang desperately tries to calm her down. Grabbing a fan from his bag, he quickly fans Elizabeth while insisting that all she needs to do is instill fear. Fighting with ordinary people like them is unnecessary. Elizabeth, however, coldly harps before ultimately deciding that, fine, she will spare them because of Lip Ping's words. However, her display of magic does not escape the gaze of the little girl, who is astonished by the magnitude of Elizabeth's magical prowess. Although her anger is held at bay, soon the clouds dissipate as if nothing occurred at all. The pig-faced man looks around, confused and fearful, at the sudden shift in the weather. He has no idea what just went on, but now all of a sudden he has a bad feeling when facing those two. The demon pig's body trembled with fear as he asked Elizabeth and Lang about why they supported the church orphans. He felt confused and nervous facing them. Payne, realizing that negotiations might not go smoothly, suggested a deal with the demon pig. He proposed paying for protection and asked how much money the demon pig wanted, eager for an opportunity. The demon PCK nervously quoted 10 gold coins for 2 months. Elizabeth, who overheard their conversation from the sidelines, laughed and remarked that a mere 10 gold coins were making a big fuss, and it was utterly foolish. Lang was surprised and he approached Elizabeth asking if she had a lot of gold coins. Elizabeth became really happy after Lang praised her and claimed that she had so many treasures that she couldn't count them all. Lang was taken aback and asked Elizabeth to lend him some, and he would pay back later after selling the vegetables back home. However, Elizabeth wasn't pleased with Lang's proposal. She didn't want him to sell his precious vegetables for a mere 10 gold coins. She called Lang an idiot for exchanging his food for useless things, and besides, she hadn't brought any gold coins when she came to find Lang. Upon hearing Elizabeth's refusal, Lang was greatly surprised and didn't know what would happen next. Demon Pig inquired whether Lai Ping and Elizabeth would pay the money or not. Lai Ping, feeling nervous, scratched his head and admitted he didn't have any gold coins. He asked if he could use the local produce in his bag as compensation. Demon Pig became furious and accused Lang and Elizabeth of playing games. He declared that he wouldn't tolerate their nonsense anymore and ordered his men to eliminate Lang and capture Elizabeth. Out of nowhere, a bag full of gold coins appeared and smacked the Demon Pig in the face. The Demon Pig got super mad and demanded to know who threw it, threatening to do harm. But then when he checked the bag, he found it was filled with shiny gold coins. Surprising him just then, a man named Hawthor showed up. He had a half-human, half-horse body. He told the Demon Pig to stop bothering his friend and leave after getting the money. Turns out Hawthor was from the Sword Saw Guild. Thunder C. Buckthorn, a powerful and famous adventurer. After realizing he was dealing with a tough guy, that the Demon Pig decided to give him some respect. He told his men to leave, but not before warning a little girl that she might not be so lucky next month. Once the Demon Pig left, Lang helped the little girl, who thanked them for stepping in when nobody else would. Lai Ping was really happy to see the girl was okay. Lang also thanked Hawthorne for helping and offered him some fruits with a humble smile. Hawthorne said it was no big deal and then turned to Elizabeth. He asked if she'd be willing to partner with him on something. The little girl adjusted her glasses and asked what he meant with his words. Howard replied with a suspicious smile, suggesting they move to another place to talk if things work out. He believed it could also solve their financial problems. Elizabeth folded her hands and expressed disinterest, instructing Lang to ask her not to leave. The little girl's younger siblings inquired anxiously if their sister Annie was going out, concerned about her getting into trouble again. Annie reassured them, asking them to return to the church and promising to be back soon. As they were about to enter the pub, Hawthorne advised them to stay close, as they didn't know what might happen. Upon entering, everyone in the pub stared at Elizabeth, and Lang. One man boldly approached Elizabeth, suggesting she join him instead, as the people around her looked like trouble. Lang and the little girl realized that if they accepted, Elizabeth would unleash her fury and likely harm everyone present. In response to the man's comment, Elizabeth's eyes turned red, and she exuded a threatening aura. Angered, she demanded the man repeat his words. The man, terrified by Elizabeth's intense presence, shook with fear along with his companions. Elizabeth turned her head to Lang and said it was all his fault for insisting on coming to a lousy place and wasting her time. She was really angry at Lang. Lang was nervous and told Elizabeth that they were already there. Hawthorne asked them to enter the private room where there wouldn't be any outsiders to bother them. Hawthorne opened the door and said that he was back. Then a bunch of cute girls surrounded Hawthorne, expressing their words worry and edness to go out and look for him next time. They pleaded with him to take them along. Hawthorne turned his head to Lang and mentioned that he forgot to mention he has a few wives. Seeing this, Lang was shocked and didn't have any words to say. He asked Hawthorne if he really had 4 wives. Hawthorne poured tea for everyone and introduced his wife to them. First was Gasha, a shield warrior. Then he pointed out Lulu, the assassin, Glee, a mage, and lastly Galia, an amazing elven archer. After Lang mentioned he had met a girl with elf bloodline a while ago, Elizabeth interrupted, urging Howard to stop with a small talk, as they needed to leave. One of the girls asked Hawthorne about Elizabeth, questioning her attitude. Elizabeth, visibly angered, responded that she was only acting as a queen like she Was the cattle found it amusing hearing someone call them the queen and questioned her master if Elizabeth's brain was okay? The elf girl observed Elizabeth, and after looking at the shape of her ears, Speckle said that she was a lowly half-blood elf who should not be in front of her.